Hi there, and thanks for tuning in to learn more about how data science teams use Cazena. In this walkthrough, we'll show you how to use Jupyter with Cazena in our free Try It Now experience.
Let's look at an example of what we have set up here. We have seeded this system with a kind of a starter notebooks for you to get a feel of how you can run many of these data analytics tasks. So again, once I log in, you'll see the familiar Jupyter notebook. Once you have this, again, this is we have a simple example here where we are going to load some of the, or we're going to read some of the data that we have in S3 and be able to uh, explore it, run some machine learning model like XGBoost and run some predictions. So that's what we're trying to do here. Again, in the interest of time, we might skip some of these steps, but again, this is publicly available and you are able to run any of these tasks yourself. One thing I want to quickly show here is that all of this data is also saved in Glue catalog. So anytime you want to run any of the queries, you can just use something like Presto to quickly explore the schema or explore the data as you see fit. So after you have the data ingestion, you typically do browse. So again, you can, as I said, you can just run simple SQL queries to browse this data. Next, if you want to do any kind of exploration, this example, what we are showing is how to load this data. And again, we have about 55 million rows in this data set. And typically a data scientist would do some kind of a smaller data to explore first before they choose a specific model to run on the entire data. So in this example, we are using something like pandas to process just about 1 million rows so that we can still explain or prove our hypothesis on the model. There are a few more examples on how you can actually clean data using pandas, be able to run visualizations very quickly and very easily. And finally, once all of this is done, maybe you want to do some feature engineering. For example, in this data, we don't have the distances between the pickup and drop-off locations. So maybe you want to calculate the distances. Maybe you want to calculate distances to individual airports because, let's say, the taxi fare to the airports is fixed. So once you add that kind of data, the next step would be actually running XGBoost in this case. So you could use any model you want. You could also plug in with SageMaker if that's what you want to use, and be able to run and train these models, and then finally make predictions. So this is an example of using something like pandas for a small data set. In general, once you have kind of explored and proved your hypothesis, you are probably going to use something like, say, Presto or Spark. So we have another example where we do this in Presto. Again, what this is showing is instead of handling just these 1 million rows, we are actually processing the entire data set, which is 55 million rows. It's not going to fit in the memory, and that's when you want to use the power of the cluster that's already that's already been created for you. So this is using Presto, and what it's doing is, again, I'll probably quickly go through this and show the count that we have on this data set. So once this data is loaded, we'll have about 55 million rows in this training data set. And if you look at the training fields that we have added, is that we not only have the original data, but we have also added additional fields like distances and so on, as well as hour and day, because again, our hypothesis is that the fare is somewhat dependent on distances, hours, days, because it might depend on weather and so on. And again, if you want to run any visualizations on this larger set of data, that's also very easy to do. Once this is done, all of this data is available in your shared data catalog. So the next step would be using something like Spark to be able to run any of the ML models. Again, what we do here is that because we have tied this with a single sign-on system, we don't need you to provide another Kerberos login. So you can just simply do this, run this utility function to do the login for you, and be able to run any of the Spark ML jobs. And again, this is using the decision tree regressor model that is included in Spark. But from the data scientist's perspective or the data engineer's perspective, you don't have to worry about where the cluster is or how to authenticate or how to encrypt the data. All that is taken care of so that you can focus entirely on the task at hand, which is data analytics. And